everyone! Today I'm going to be featuring the Siegfried. Again, this ship has been returned to us for another round of testing. Before I start though, my Mainz giveaway was actually so popular, apparently there's a lot of people that really want the ship, that I decided that I'm gonna give away another Mainz out of my own pocket. Because, well, it looks like there's a lot of people who want it. So, same thing this video. Add Mainz giveaway, your in-game name and what server you play on, and you have a chance to win a Mainz from this video as well. As usual, I'll post the winner on my Twitter, including a vid of drawing the actual winner. Moving on, the matchmaking is full tier 9. Which is obviously one of my favorite times to test a ship, because you're neither up tiered nor beating up tier 7s, but you're basically up against ships that you're in straight competition with. Now I'm not gonna go into too much detail on the Siegfried hull, because it's fundamentally an Ägir hull. I brought this up when I asked where was the armor, the missing armor from the blueprints in my Ägir vid. Well, that same armor is also missing on the Siegfried, even though the Siegfried most certainly was an O-type Schlachtkreuzer. But that armor is also missing on this one. So the nose is 27mm. Keep an eye on my shells, by the way, when I'm shooting these ships, and you'll see why the title says Overpen machine. It is a very common issue here. Moving on, the armor is, the nose is the classic 27mm bow, the deck is 30mm, it has that strong upper belt, which is very good when angled and quite a vulnerability if someone gets you to shoot your broadside. Combined with the non-functional turtleback, it is, as mentioned, it is an Ägir hull. 11.9 km concealment, AA, not really gonna accomplish much. And yes, I've actually tried the secondary build on this thing, just like I tried back in the days with the Ägir, but considering this as standard German secondary dispersion, and the secondaries aren't really that overwhelming in number or reload, that really didn't work out well. It was mostly a waste of time. I tried, but the secondaries, they shot for a good time with Gunther Lutyens and a full secondary build, but ultimately, seriously 5 Overpens, but ultimately they were very, very inefficient. So secondary build is just completely out the window. So the big question is, of course, how does this O-type differ from the Ägir that I've featured a couple of times? Well, the guns. The dispersion is, as you can tell, actually pretty damn tight on these guns. Instead of having the 305mm guns of the Ägir, 9 of them, this thing has 6 308mm guns, 820 meter per second shell velocity, and in fact these are the Bismarck guns. These are exactly copy-pasted Bismarck guns, except you only have 6 of them. But the dispersion is better, and the reload is 22.9 seconds with the reload mod, which is pretty respectable. I wouldn't have too many issues with these guns. In fact, Siegfried as a concept could potentially work if you just wouldn't be so plagued with Overpens in this thing. In fact, many other battleships or battle cruisers perform better. For the one that of course comes to mind, the one that you have to obviously compare it to, is Alaska. Now obviously you wouldn't want another ship that's quite as powerful as the Alaska, because that thing is already, as I mentioned in a previous commentary, that thing is basically tier 9.5, far too strong for its tier. But having these 380mm guns doesn't really feel like much of an advantage at tier 9. There are so few things you can actually overmatch. 25mm noses, there are quite few and a few between, and most of the time when you're shooting these lighter cruisers, well, you're getting a ton of Overpens. If you do get a Citadel, the damage is quite impressive. I mean, it's battleship damage Citadels, but ultimately most ships have a very easy time of angling against this ship. 22.9 second reload is basically battleship reload. At that point you can't really talk about it as a cruiser reload, and ships can quite easily angle against the shells, then turn away and disengage, or just basically outtrade you by angling against these shells. There are no improved pen angles, there's nothing really special about them. It's bog standard Bismarck guns, but you're up in tier 9 using them, and you're facing tier 10s even more often than the tier 8 guys. Add in the fact that when you're nose in a situation like this, well, you're only really using 4 of the guns, and throwing out 4 Bismarck shells every 22.9 seconds isn't exactly impressive. And if you end up in situations like this where a DD is within range, well, you do have the German Hydro, which allows me to spot this quite early, as I suspected there would be a DD up here, and I am able to maneuver between the torpedoes, find myself a gap, and dodge them. The issue is, even with expert loader, the German captains, none of the German captains have an improved expert loader like the Italians or the Americans have on John Doe and Halsey and so forth, which of course is extremely powerful on many of their battle cruisers and even battleships, because it allows you to switch ammunition type so quickly. But on Siegfried, even with the expert loader, we're talking about an almost 11.5 second time to switch from AP to HE. Which means when you are fighting DDs or rushing DDs most of the time, well, you're shooting Bismarck AP at them, and you're shooting 4 to 6 shells at a time. So when it comes to DD blapping power, not exactly very impressive. Now, if cruisers do give you broadside like this rune does, and you do get a citadel, as I mentioned, the damage can be quite impressive, but honestly all they really need to do is angle, and they will outtrade you heavily. Very, very heavily. Because you gotta remember, you also only have a 27mm nose and 30mm deck armor. This guy, if he was shooting HE, well, of course rune HE pens 50, so he could quite easily be crushing me in this trade. I managed to somehow get a pen, not sure how, considering his 27mm plating should have no issues of bouncing these shells, but hey, we're not gonna be one to complain. At this point though, he's just sitting on the border. I hope he gives enough broadside that I can get some sort of hits in, but he actually glides faster than I thought, and he glides away from the shells. Still though, it feels anemic. It feels like perhaps something that I could have seen perform quite well in tier 8, but being in tier 9, it just suffers. It struggles. It struggles a lot. And that's basically the same case we happen with the Bismarck. In this case, yeah, I see a Yuguma early enough, and it looks like he's actually pushing in, so I'm switching to HE. Secondary accuracy is of course incredibly depressing. Even adding manual secondary doesn't really make this useful, but you can just see how sad that secondary accuracy is. It is just completely ridiculous. I do land one hit and I break a fair bit of stuff on him, and now we gotta wait this full over 20 seconds to get another volley off. In fact, I would say that Siegfried is probably absolutely ridiculously vulnerable to just being rushed by enemy DDs and killed off. For some reason this guy plays it fairly safe on the edge, so I managed to get another volley off, but 3 hits, 3.6k. The HE that we're shooting, even though it's 380mm HE, it's ultimately still only German HE. And German HE isn't exactly known for its potency. In fact, I'm pretty sure that Siegfried HE DPM is probably among the absolute worst of basically everything at tier 9. I have a hard time seeing any ship that would have worse HE DPM than this thing. It really is that anemic, and the fire starting capacity is probably along the same lines. I haven't actually looked up the numbers, but just from playing the ship myself, you can just see how much of a struggle this ship can be to deal damage in. Now this isn't exactly my highest damage game either. I could have shown some game where you somehow managed to get a bunch of YOLOs in, or you managed to get some broadsides in, but that's not really representative of the ship, how the ship plays. Most of the time you shoot at broadsides and you get a bunch of overpens, and then you curse, and then you wait 20-ish plus seconds for your next volley to come out, and during that time, well, the cruiser of course angles away and just starts spamming you while laughing at your now 380mm guns that don't really do a whole lot to his angled ship. It's rough, but that's really the Siegfried experience in a nutshell. I think since I don't want to just complain about the poor things, a suggestion to improving the ship would be perhaps trying shorter fuses on these guns. I mean, they're handing out shorter fuses like candy to the Soviet cruisers and the battle cruisers and basically everything that's Soviet. They're handing out these short fuses. And maybe giving these short fuses to this ship as well would alleviate the constant issue of feeling like you get overpens no matter what you're shooting at. Worth trying. It could limit its ability to get citadels on BBs, but ultimately it's not like Bismarck is exactly infamous for its ability to citadel tier 9 and tier 10 BBs unless you're completely point blank. Shorter fuses on the AP might be a potential solution. I pop Hydra, I'm kinda alone on this. In fact, I've already tanked 2.3 million potential behind this island, just tanking all this incoming fire. And I'm trying to crawl out and take a shot at this Ibuki. I'm hoping I can get my front guns around the island. I pull the trigger, I do get them around the island. And, well, half the shells land short, and the other two are an overpen. And now we have to wait 22 seconds again. As I said, this is the more common Siegfried experience. Not really that engaging. I do make him stop an angle against me, which allows Alaska or Jean Bart, like these actually scary tier 9 ships, to blap him. I use my back turret on him, and lo and behold, another 2 overpens on the Ibuki, and I do get the kill. Changmu looks like he's gonna pop out. I send preemptive torps, but in the invisible island kinda extends past its actual visuals and eats most of my torpedoes. I start moving away from the DD since I don't think he's actually going to rush me. I have said multiple times in my DD guides that never ever rush someone from behind the ship. I see he's doing it. I should have switched to HE, but honestly I wasn't expecting it. I take a pot shot, the island eats that shot as well. But this is why you don't rush someone from behind. When you're accelerating away, I can see where his torps are going, I can line up my ship between the torpedoes, and of course you gotta remember Siegfried does have access to his 6 torpedoes of his own. So even though this is a very clumsy Siegfried Ägir hull, I do manage to weave past all his torpedoes and establishing dominance. I actually land 2 torpedoes on him myself, and I do take him out. Now I guess that is a way of killing DDs in the Siegfried when the secondaries don't really do a whole lot, and the main gun DPM is so underwhelming. I guess you can go out of your way to torpedo them to death, but I wouldn't exactly call it the single most efficient torpedo killing that we have seen from a tier, or DD killing that we have seen from a tier 9 cruiser. I pop the damage con to get rid of the fires. I'm tempted to fire on this rune, but of course you gotta remember that since this is a battle cruiser, you do suffer from extended fire duration, so I'm not really willing to take a shot right now because permanent fire will probably burn me to death. So I'm gonna glide up to this island and see if I can maybe take another shot as we're gliding closer. He does pop up, but at this point he is angled, which of course kind of ruins the party because, well, we don't have Alaska's improved pen angles and we cannot overmatch him. So we're just gonna wait and see if maybe he's gonna turn too much. I hope he's gonna commit to a turn, but he actually cancels it and turns right back in. And we get 2 bounces, of course. That is the downside of if someone actually turns in against your ship. Siegfried can't do a whole lot. I glide up towards the island. I'm thinking that I can take one more shot and then maybe get right up close to this island and put the center of my ship behind it, which means that he will not be able to get hits in. I land 5 shells and 5 overpens. Once again, Siegfried. It really, the ship, it just feels kind of tragic to play the ship, honestly. It's especially since I've been playing the Riga lately, and the Riga, the tier 9 Soviet cruiser, that thing has been quite beastly. And then going back from that ship to playing the Siegfried in between has just been, it's been an experience to say the least. The plane is spotting me. I crawl right back up to the island, trying to mitigate the damage as much as I can. Plane still spots me. I'm calling target on him. I really want my team to shoot him. There's not much point in me shooting. I tried to weave a shell past the island, but I cannot. So we go back up to hiding behind the island. We're very close to winning, but we're down 4 versus 5, and me dying could offset the game since my last kill looks incredibly overextended. The Brindisi does land a pretty good volley on him. I call target on him, and at this point I know I only have one more shot left, and I pray to RNGesus, and I do in fact get 2 over penetrations, but 1 single penetration. And that single penetration allowed me to overcome the mightiest cruiser of the tier 9, the Rune. Said no one ever. The fact that this game was basically a struggle against the Rune tells you all you need to know about the offensive capabilities of the Siegfried. The game ends an overwhelming 94,000 damage. To be fair, I do have higher damage games in this ship, but I thought that this game was so comical, really highlighting just how underwhelming these guns are, even though the dispersion looks nice and the idea of these 380mm guns sounds nice, the actual performance is just such a meme. Team score wise, we do top the scoreboard, mostly thanks to killing both the enemy DDs this game. In fact, I killed both the Yugumo and the Changmu, both of them thinking it was a good idea to rush me. Maybe they have actually seen some gameplay of the Siegfried and thus they felt encouraged to go for it. I can't blame them. I mean, of all the cruisers in the game, this is probably the easiest one to run up to and kill. Detailed report wise, well, 5 HE hits, 5,800 damage. Of course, that HE alpha, very, very terrifying. 53 AP shells, 75k. That's including a Citadel, remember, that did about, what, 11, 12k? So if you remove that one Citadel hit, we're sitting at roughly almost every single shell in Overpen on average when it comes to damage dealt. Very impressive. Secondaries, shells fired, 154. A whole 9 shells landed, so another feather in the cap for that German accuracy in this one. The one thing that was quite impressive was we did tank 2.8 million potential damage, and in fact we tanked almost 100k damage. Now, I doubt I have to be any clearer. The Siegfried is not a recommended ship in its current state. No, I do not recommend it. As always though, I hope you guys enjoyed this commentary. Do take part in the Mainz giveaway. You have to be subscribed in the channel to take part. Just type Mainz giveaway and the in-game name and what server you're playing on, and you will be taking part in a second Mainz giveaway. Have a fantastic rest of the evening, my dudes, and I will talk to you guys later.